There is a kind of pain that almost no one talks about. Asterisk, it is not the pain of those who never dreamed, but of those who dreamed too big and now live too small. Asterisk, that strange feeling of carrying a promise in your chest, while reality insists on pushing you backward. Asterisk, that is where many people begin to wonder, in silence, whether God got the address wrong, or whether they were the ones who misunderstood everything. The most unsettling part is that, most of the time, the problem is not the promise. It is the path to it. Asterisk. We grow up hearing that faith brings victory, but almost no one warns that, before that, it usually brings loss, confusion, and waiting. Asterisk, it is counterintuitive. I know, it even seems unfair. But what if the difficult process was not a sign of delay, but of deep preparation? Asterisk, the story you are about to hear does not begin with success. It begins with conflict. Asterisk, it does not begin in the palace. It begins in doubt. And perhaps that is exactly why it resonates so well with your life today. Because if you are in the middle of the journey, feeling forgotten, wronged, or confused, then this story is not just ancient. It is present. Asterisk, and it can change the way you see everything from now on. Joseph was still young when he began to dream. Not ordinary dreams that fade when morning comes, but dreams that carried weight, meaning, and promise. Asterisk, he saw visions too great for someone so young, and even without fully understanding them, he felt they came from God. The problem is that dreams like these do not come with instructions. They awaken hope, but they also confuse, because they reveal a future that does not yet match the present. Asterisk, at that moment, Joseph's life was simple, almost ordinary. Asterisk, nothing around him suggested greatness, leadership, or authority. Asterisk, still, deep inside, something told him there was more. And this is exactly where the tension begins, when the heart can see far ahead, but the feet are still stuck in the present. Those who watch this part of the story quickly understand. It is hard to hold on to a dream when reality insists on feeling too small. Asterisk, Joseph was not just another one among his brothers. Asterisk, his father looked at him differently, treated him differently, loved him differently. Asterisk, and this became clear in small, everyday actions. Asterisk, the problem is that love, when it is not balanced, can turn into fuel for silent resentment. Asterisk, what was affection for Joseph sounded like favoritism to his brothers. Asterisk, and without realizing it, he was walking on increasingly unstable ground. Asterisk, conversation stopped when he arrived, and glances crossed, filled with something that was not affection. Asterisk, Joseph felt it, even without fully understanding. Asterisk, there was a strange feeling in the air, as if he occupied a place he should not. Asterisk, being loved too much too early can isolate as much as being rejected. Asterisk, and it hurts in a way that leaves no visible marks. Asterisk A. Careful observer would notice that the first great rupture was already forming there. Asterisk. Not because Joseph was evil, but because he still did not know how to handle what he carried. Asterisk, his father's favor set him apart, but it also exposed him. Asterisk, and when envy finds space, it does not warn before it acts. Asterisk, the story begins to move toward a point of no return. Asterisk, and the next chapter is not born in dreams. Asterisk, it is born in silence, far from home, where trust would be broken in the most painful way possible. Everything happened too fast. Asterisk an ordinary day. A simple task, a request from his father, to go and meet his brothers. Asterisk Joseph was not suspicious. He was not armed. He was not prepared. He went with trust. From a distance, even before getting close, something was already wrong in their eyes. Asterisk, these were not the faces of men waiting for a brother. Asterisk, but of those who had fed feelings for too long and no longer knew how to contain them. Asterisk, the violence did not begin with hands, but with words. Asterisk, harsh laughter, cruel comments, the feeling of being surrounded with no escape. Asterisk, in just a few moments, Joseph found himself stripped of what identified him, thrown into a dark, cold, silent pit. The ground was rough, the sky distant. Asterisk there, the dream seemed not only unlikely, but cruelly ironic. Asterisk, how does someone go from promises to the bottom of a hole? Asterisk, a mentor would say that few pains are as deep as this, being hurt by those who know your story. The betrayal of his brothers was not only physical, it was emotional. That pit marked Joseph's first great inner rupture. Something died there, but something also began to be born. Asterisk, because when everything seems lost and no one comes to help, life forces a difficult question. Who are you when everything is taken from you? Asterisk, the answer does not come right away. Asterisk, it begins to form in the next unexpected place. The pit was left behind, but the feeling of loss continued to follow Joseph. Now, far from home, in a foreign land, he had no name, no protection, no choice. He was just another slave trying to survive long, silent days. Still, something inside him remained whole, even wounded. He chose not to become what they had done to him, and that decision, though invisible, began to change everything. But life, once again, turned the table. Temptation appeared, a lie was told, and the truth was not heard. Joseph paid a high price for choosing integrity. An experienced mentor would say this is one of the hardest tests, to suffer not for doing wrong, but for doing what is right. Injustice led him to another dark place, deeper than the pit, and there, at the bottom of a prison, silence would once again teach lessons that only time can reveal. The prison was not just a physical space. It was an emotional state. The days dragged on the same, and time seemed to have lost its commitment to the future. Still, Joseph did not close himself off. Even behind bars, he observed, listened, and felt. It was there that other stories crossed his path, people just as broken, carrying confused dreams and fear in their eyes. Joseph, even wounded, became a shelter when he interpreted the dreams of his fellow prisoners. Something was reignited. It was not freedom, but it was hope, a simple promise, almost timid. When everything gets better, remember me. And Joseph believed. After all, after so much pain, who does not hold on to a possibility? But the days passed, the months went by. And Joseph's name was forgotten. Silence returned to fill the space, heavier than before. A mentor would say this is the point where many give up on the inside. They make no noise. They do not abandon faith publicly, but they stop expecting. Joseph, however, remained. Not because it was easy, but because he had learned something essential. Not every delay is rejection. Some delays are simply invisible preparation. And while he thought he was forgotten, the world outside was beginning to align in an unexpected way. Exactly for the next chapter. It was just another ordinary day in prison, with no sign of change, when everything began to move outside those walls. A troubling dream disturbed the most powerful ruler of that time, and no one could explain what it meant. Fear took over, urgency grew, and in that moment, an old name resurfaced in someone's memory. Joseph, the forgotten one, the prisoner, the unlikely one. In an instant, years of silence began to make sense. Joseph left the prison without warning, without preparation, without time to understand. From the bars straight to the palace, from anonymity to the center of Leonthi. Decisions. But the most impressive change was not the setting, it was the inner transformation. He did not speak like a dreaming boy, but like someone refined by time. Suffering had removed the hurry. Pain had taught discernment. He was ready, even without knowing it. A mentor would say that opportunities do not appear for those who only dream, but for those who become. The right moment is not when the door opens, but when the person is ready to walk through it. Joseph walked through, and there, before everyone, the dream began to take real shape. But the final test would not be power nor honor. It would be the reunion with a past that still hurt. They entered without knowing who he was, bowed down, tired, marked by time and need. Joseph recognized them instantly. Their faces were different, but his memory did not fail. There they were, the ones who had thrown him into the pit, now dependent on the mercy he could offer. His heart tightened. It was not simple anger. It was something deeper, a mixture of old pain and restrained emotion. Inside, Joseph fought a silent battle. He had the power to strike back, words to wound, authority to punish. Everything that had once been taken from him was now in his hands. But something had changed. Suffering did not harden him, it matured him. A mentor would say, "This is the true test of transformation. What do you do when you have power over those who hurt you?" Joseph chose to see beyond the wound. He cried in secret, took a deep breath, delayed decisions. He was not weak. He was conscious, because forgiveness is not denying pain. It is deciding not to be ruled by it. And in that moment, the plan began to fully reveal itself. What once seemed like injustice started to make sense, and the story moved toward an ending that spoke not only of victory, but of deep redemption. The moment of revelation was not grand. It was intimate. Joseph could no longer bear the weight of silence. Tears came before words, as if his body needed to speak before his mouth. When he revealed who he was, time seemed to stop. His brothers stood frozen, caught between shock, fear, and guilt. The past they had tried to bury was now alive before them, clothed with authority and grace. Joseph did not use the moment to accuse. He reinterpreted his own pain. He said something only those who have gone through the process are able to say. "You intended evil against me, but God turned it into good." It was not a ready-made phrase. It was mature awareness. He understood that every stage, the pit, slavery, prison, was not waste. It was construction. The pain was not denied, but signified . And that changes everything. A wise mentor would say that maturity is when a person can look back without wishing to change the past. Joseph saw the invisible thread connecting every chapter of his story. Nothing was random. Nothing slipped out of control. And when this understanding arrives, it doesn't bring only relief, it brings responsibility. Because those who understand purpose begin to live differently, Dot. And it is exactly at this point that the story stops being only about Joseph and begins to echo in the life of everyone who listens. Perhaps while you were listening to this story, you recognized yourself in a specific part of it. Perhaps you are living the pit, the prison, or that silence that feels like it will never end. The real question is not where you are, but who you are becoming while you wait. Because Joseph's story does not prove that suffering ends quickly. It proves that the process forms people capable of sustaining what they asked God for. Now, be honest with yourself. What did this story reveal about your own journey? What pain have you been carrying that may actually be being used as construction? What wounds are you still holding on to, even knowing that forgiveness does not change the past, but completely changes the future? These answers do not come all at once, but they begin when we decide to look inward with courage. If this content spoke to you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep walking with us. Here, we don't run from difficult processes. We learn how to walk through them with purpose, because in the end, your story is also being written, even in the chapters you don't yet understand.